Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon to all our participants present here, and good morning to our resource person, Dr. Shamsher Ali, for being with us here today in a very early morning since he's based in the US. So we are gathered here today for a Comstech Distinguished Scholar webinar on regulatory innovation in clinical trials, bridging gaps in Pakistan's regulatory ecosystem. So we have a few participants who have joined us so far, and more will be joining us as the lecture proceeds. We also have representation from the DRAP organization from Pakistan here as well present in the webinar today. So just to introduce you over here at Comstech, I'm Hasib Ahmed, I'm the program officer. And with me, I have Dr. Shahid Beg, who's advisor at Comstech. And also we have Dr. Abdul Rashid, who is consultant health initiatives here at Comstech and has been a part of DRAP for his career as well, who is a renowned pharmacist. So to begin today's webinar, I would now like to request Professor Dr. Shahid Beg to briefly introduce our speaker for today before we move on to the lecture.
Thank you, Asif. It's an honor and my pleasant duty to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Shamsher Ali is a highly experienced clinical and regulatory affairs professional with more than 15 years of multidisciplinary expertise spanning clinical research, regulatory strategy, scientific innovation, and trial operations. With a robust academic foundation and advanced training in biomedical research, Dr. Ali has successfully transitioned into leading global phase 1 to 3 clinical trials in diverse therapeutic areas, including oncology, cardiology, dermatology, diabetes, autoimmune, and rare diseases. Dr. Ali is currently serving as a clinical regulatory affairs specialist at the University of Massachusetts Chan Medical School. He oversees end-to-end regulatory operations for over 100 active clinical studies. Dr. Ali's industry and academic career includes leadership roles at Alliance Foundation Trials, Drager Medical System, and American International Chemical. Across these positions, he had regulatory and quality operations, vendor compliance programs, global clinical submissions, and cross-functional collaboration to meet both scientific and regulatory milestones. Previously, Dr. Ali has conducted extensive postdoctoral research in biomedical sciences at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, MIT Harvard, and Northwestern University. He specialized in the chemical modification and structural characterization of bioactive oligosaccharides, contributing to drug development for inflammatory diseases. Dr. Ali holds a PhD in chemistry and a Master of Science in Regulatory Affairs from Northeastern University. His unique blend, translational science, clinical operations, and regulatory strategy positions him as a leader at the intersection of innovation, compliance, and patient-focused research. He has published his research in peer-reviewed journals like PNAS and Lab on Chip. Dr. Ali, we are excited to listen to you. Please enlighten us with your talk and share your experience. It is over to Dr. Ali, please.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Shahid Beg, for introducing me. Such wonderful words. I'm really glad we have never seen each other, but we have already met via Dr. Mazur Rahman.
And okay. It's a pleasant surprise. Yes, we have already.
Obed Bhai, you and I share the same university alumni and same session in the same motherland, Dera Ismail Khan.
So it's a pleasure to see you immediately.
Yeah, it is so pleasant to see you both and introducing me with so nice, kind words. So I was writing like good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everybody. But the best of best is Assalamu alaikum to everyone. So my first disclaimer before I start, I am not at all an expert on Pakistani landscape of clinical trials. So any information that I will present or I will offer a an option of betterment or getting it aligned with the international clinical studies is all based on, Dr. Bad, your presentations that I watched on YouTube. And I went through the DREP's website and whatever information I could find in journals, articles published in NIH and everywhere else in the health authorities. So, but I can give my honest opinion, what I searched for, and I thought what it is requiring Pakistan to get onto the larger landscape in the global clinical studies. So starting with, I tried to cover the Pakistani regulatory landscape in a way that it matches with most of its Islamic countries so that it could help as its forum from comstech. So imagine a world where life-saving drugs take years of patience, not because science isn't ready, but because outdated regulatory systems stand in the way. And it's not only in Pakistan. We here in the US also have the same system. There are lots and lots of stuff that is hindering the faster and prompt propagation of clinical studies and the regulatory approvals and all those processes. In Pakistan, that's more than just a hypothetical. It's real challenge. As a clinical research accelerates globally, Pakistan, as it at crossroads of success and being hindered with the other obstacles. We have the scientific potential. Pakistan has a growing pharma industry. So the regulatory authorities of Pakistan, especially in terms of clinical studies, has to walk on the two-way sword. So they have to have a connection with the regulations that are not fully matching the global regulatory paradigm, and also with the pharmaceutical industry that is not at its best as in the world, starting from scratch to the end of development of the drug development processes. I'll walk you through the current state of clinical trials regulation in Pakistan. Then I have to highlight where the gaps are, and then we will explore the innovative global models Pakistan can adopt in context of Pakistan's clinical study landscape. Ultimately, this is about enabling the safer, faster, and more ethical access to new treatments for the people who need most. So before all, in diving into the details, 4 key questions must be addressed that had determined whether a research study qualifies to be called as a clinical trial. These questions are based on Dr. Ubaid's presentations and also on INH guidelines based on and comparative of the DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, and NIH guidelines match and differences. So the first question is, does the study directly involve a human participant? These individuals are central to investigations. So the participant are the main person or object subject under the question. So their informed consent will be obtained prior to any study activities, because study is focused on how a specific intervention affects people who are taking part in this study. So the direct human involvement is utmost important in calling a study as a clinical study. Number 2, participants are prospectively assigned to an intervention. This means that before intervention begins, each participant is intentionally placed into a specific group, whether it's an active treatment group or a comparison group. This assignment may be randomized or followed a predefined plan, which we name in different ways. The number third is the entire study of the study of research is focused on evaluating the effect of the intervention on the participants. It's not just administering the intervention. The purpose is to systematically measuring the outcome to understand how this intervention influences the excuse me, participants' health, behavior, and or well-being. The most important and the last one is the outcome being measured are directly related to the health. These may include physiological measures like blood pressure, behavioral indicators such as physical activities, adherence to treatment. The goal is to generate findings that have real world implications for improving the health. So in all these, based on all these four cornerstones, a research study is called a clinical trial when one or more human subjects are prospectively assigned to one or more interventions, which may include placebo or other controls, as in point 2 we mentioned, to evaluate the effects of those interventions on health-related biomedical and behavioral outcomes. This is the definition that has been given in the NIH website for a study to be considered as a clinical study. So before going in detail for clinical studies, so there are two kinds of clinical studies. One is the clinical trial involves the investigational medicinal product. And the focus of this is to investigate the effects of a drug or medicine that is not yet authorized. So it is kind of a stage one study or the phase 1 study that is just being conducted to see that novel way of medicine. So the key characteristics of this study is the administration of investigational product to a human participant. This could be only one participant or two or less than. So earlier it was like 100 participants at least, but now in the modern studies, the companies are conducting in less than 50 to call it a phase 1 study. Examples are testing a new drug for specific treatment, like cancer studies are most common these days. And all the drugs that are being treated are not yet approved, but they are under process. The number 2 kind of clinical trials are non-investigational medicinal products. These are a wide range of focus points and wide range of characteristics and outcomes. So there might be many that other regulatory agencies or clinical researchers may have known, but these are the most common that are being considered these days. So these are medical devices, because after the post-COVID has changed the whole landscape of clinical trials. So earlier medical devices was going through only 510K or PMA, and that's it. Post-COVID scenario in the world is that now medical devices are being treated for so many complications that involve the longer clinical studies, not only phase 1 or 2, but now people are going for phase 3 clinical studies with the medical devices. I have myself taken care of at least 9 clinical studies over the last 3 years that involve the medical devices, the level of phase 3 clinical studies. Then surgical procedures, mostly the stents, and these days people are using in other medical complications also. So number 3, as we discussed in the last slide, was the non-drug interventions. Studies that use drugs but not in investigational capacity. So comparing the two dosages, same drug but at the 2 dosages, or 2 different drugs combined together to study the mutual effect of those studies. So these are all the focus points of non-CTIMP, we call it. So the key characteristics of non-CTIMP studies is that they involve investigational. They do not involve investigational product, as we had said earlier. The drug is not the primary focus of investigation. So it is either comparing the effects of the one drug on different doses or in different conditions and all this. So examples are a study evaluating the effectiveness of a new type of surgical implant, study comparing the outcomes of different physical therapies, questionnaires. These studies of epidemiology these days, they are taking place, and as we will see in later slides of my presentation, Pakistan could be one of the best place to have more focus on these kind of clinical studies, because there are many diseases in Pakistan that people are suffering from, they're dealing with daily in their daily lives, but they don't know the whole paradigm of this clinic, of their clinical ailment to be called, and to know the impacts that can be worsened or can be improved just by simple, questionnaires, and just change in their, current medication, and then they can, the whole landscape can be changed. So this is a one point area where Pakistani researchers who are conducting clinical studies, they can take lead in the world, and at least, if not globally, so in the region, and especially under the umbrella of comstech and OIC, they can take lead in to inform the world, to acknowledge that what kind of diseases can be evaluated on these basis of these technically and scientifically driven and technically and scientifically based questionnaires to understand the progress or to diminish those clinical ailments. So what are the importance of clinical studies in medical innovation, not globally, but in the paradigm of Pakistani landscape? So clinical trials are as we said, the cornerstones of medical innovation. They provide the foundation upon which new treatments, new therapies, new medical technologies are developed, validated, and brought to safely to the patients. Regulatory affairs of these clinical studies play a crucial role in ensuring the safety and efficacy and quality of medicine, or nowadays the medical devices and all these things for patients who are being used through the approval process of these drugs and studies. The regulatory affairs field also presents the rewarding career opportunities to people who are to healthcare professionals, and in countries like Pakistan and other OIC member countries, for sponsors. They can get sponsorship from big pharma. They can generate their own sponsor based clinical studies, so they can involve other business people who are looking their careers in healthcare industry, and they can also include other health authorities to improve the patient's outcome and the advancement of medical innovation. So by systematically evaluating the safety, efficacy, and potential side effects of the novel interventions, these clinical trials ensure not only the rigorous tests and significant sound solutions, but also the ethical practices being taken care in these clinical practices. So in the clinical trials and the regulatory improvements for the clinical trials, they gap this bridge between the lab discoveries and the real world applications. So there is a huge chance of transforming the research into life-saving therapies. So in addition, the clinical trials uphold the regulatory standards that protect the patient's welfare and generate high quality data and drive evidence-based medicines. So this is the point where countries like Pakistan can can participate heavily in high quality data, and then can invite mega pharmaceuticals to be part of progress of this country. Without the clinical trials, so the medical progress is a stall. No country can progress only based on importing all the everything for their people, especially in the paradigm nowadays, the how the the healthcare system is getting expensive and expensive. So every country, and countries like Pakistan and other OIC countries, they need to build their own healthcare system by having their own ethical and regulatory authorities that facilitate the clinical studies for not only local pharmas, but their collaborations with the larger pharmas, so that the people could have access to all modernized healthcare system. The only point that I would emphasize in here, I haven't mentioned in my slide, but is that when you are among the big money maker companies, then the regulatory authorities have to have real vibrant eyes and ears. The regulatory authorities like DRAP, we are a small country. Regulations are mostly governed by the government. The DRAP doesn't have that much of independence like FDA and EMA. And that is in one way, this is a a blessing in disguise, because these big pharma companies, they have the system to force regulatory authorities to walk with their way. So the pharma companies are mostly my way or the highway, and we need to have really vibrant leadership in the regulatory authorities. And Obad bhai, I was listening to your one of the presentation that you had with the APNA, and I was really amazed to see that DRAP is still having its integrity and not being blown with the big pharma companies. So this is very good for, excuse me, this is very good for countries like Pakistan's progress. So Pakistan, a country with population of more than 250 million now. When I was just checking this morning, so I couldn't update my slide. So in the last population census things, it was mentioning 240, but it's nearly 250 million people. So it is a gateway to robust and transparent regulatory framework that could ensure the safety and efficacy and quality of medical products and clinical research for both innovation and foreign investments. So strong regulatory oversight, as I mentioned, builds trust among the global partners and local partners in this industry. And it also aligns the country's international standards, such as those with WHO and ICH. I have been going through the DRAP's website, and I'm so glad to mention that there is, very less work that Pakistan has to do to align with WHO. There are points that we still miss in ICH guidelines. And there could be many reasons that we will discuss in the coming slides. But at overall, it seems like Pakistan is ready to have a flight in the international and global clinical study paradigm. The only point that is most required is the empowering the regulatory authorities in Pakistan. Yes, governmental influence is required, as I mentioned earlier, but independence and empowering the regulatory authorities in a way that they can have their say in the regulatory process for big pharma. So that keeps their integrity and advancement of Pakistani regulatory landscape. Okay, so I will now walk you through from the specific laws and regulations that I feel DRAP has adopted and covered a lot of to promote the clinical studies in Pakistan. And I will just keep telling my point of view, in my humble opinion, that what could be improved in a little bit so that Pakistan can go on and on for clinical studies to invite the global pharma and to support the local clinical healthcare individuals and small companies to get their piece in the advancement of clinical studies in this country. So one of the core issues lies in the, as I said, full autonomy of the operational independence, which exposes the bureaucratic delay and political influence. So bureaucracy, as we all know, works with the political system. So we have to have a stronger and firm political system that influences in a positive way to strengthen the DRAP and the regulations that they send forward to the legislatures to pass and to implement in the country. So I was amazed to see that DRAP has lots and lots of regulations that could be implemented, but the political influence unfortunately is not in the positive way, but sometimes it is in the negative way. Like for example, I can say during the process of approval of any clinical study, as the bigger pharma influence in different ways, now the local pharma perhaps is also trying to involve the political figures, not in passing or opposing the law, but influencing the approval of the process. This is not the political personalities job. Their job is to sit in the Senate or sit in the National Assembly and pass the laws. And over there, they can give their feedback. So ACT also falls short in ensuring the transparency and accountability in the approval process. So this has to be taken care of so that when a drug or a law or a medical device or whatever medical thing gets approval process, it is not hindering DRAP's process. So by saying that influence means hindering the approval process of DRAP. So DRAP has to be autonomous so that they can take care of their approval process at their own pace, at their own transparency level, and at their own accountability level. So the bureaucratic and political less in bureaucratic and political influence will help DRAP to stay stronger and grant more approvals and through the transparent and due process. To improve it, so the key reforms of as I said, the autonomy, transparency, and drug approval and pricing process. So the pricing should not be governed by the government of Pakistan. The pricing should be governed by the DRAP. So this will give them an independence. As we all know, financial independence is the real independence for the countries, for persons, for regulatory authorities like DRAP and FDA and all those. I know FD doesn't have that much of autonomy. So telling DRAP to have more autonomy it takes time and efforts, and I think the draft is going in a right direction to seek its independence for that. So there, so the way to do that is that DRAP has to promote regulatory alignments with the international standards and enhance the capacity through skilled staffing and digitalizing the system so that it is more transparent, not only in Pakistan but anywhere whoever applies for an approval process, so they can see the progress by themselves. So then the second most important law is the Biosafety Study Rule of 2017. So this is another very nice, and remarkable rule regulation set forward by for DRAP in 2017, and it allows the bioequivalence and bioavailability studies aiming to ensure the safety, efficacy, and ethical conduct of the biomedical research. The most important point in this is the ethical conduct of the biomedical research. This is the most important and most vigilant concept these days in the clinical studies, and this rule marks the significant step towards Pakistan's regulatory alignment with international standards. However, there is a challenge of implementation. If let me say this, that in Pakistan we say the ethics is only governed by certain class of people in masjid or wherever, but we have to bring the educated, learned people who are not only influencing the common man in rural masjids, and they comment on the international things, but we have to bring really highly high capacity brains that they know the international norms, they know the international ethics, and then they merge the international ethics, highly studied international ethics, with their local system, and then to improve on, because whatever we make as rules, it is the patient who's going to suffer with that, in terms of approved drug or device, and also when it is he or she is the part of a clinical study. So strengthening and enforcing the technical expertise in ethics is the essential to fully realize the potential of these rules in supporting the safety and credibility of the clinical studies. The regulatory framework must be updated to reflect that it is aligned with WHO, ICH, and European medical authorities for ethical things. So the clearer definitions, streamlined approval timelines of these ethical standards, and standardization of the protocols with ethical review, and the trial monitoring by highly qualified individuals. And Pakistan has the largest educated youth. So digitalizing the systems and training the youth with digitalized clinical studies, inspection, monitoring, and conduct, by reinforcing the mechanisms. This will strengthen the compliance and transparency, not only for the draft, but overall for the country. And this model can be implemented then into other OIC countries successfully, inshallah. So additionally, the collaboration between the local within the local market, and collaboration at large in comstech nation states, and then ranging it into the bigger pharma globally. This will not only encourage the stakeholders, but it will also enhance the academic and industrial relationship and academic research. So if Pakistan in particular and comstech countries in general, they have to come into the frame of the global clinical studies. So this is the best way. They have to have strengthened their academic clinical research. So the medical colleges, they are not only they should not only be providing the medical doctors, but the trained doctors who are not only interested in sitting opening a clinic and just patient visits them, they just prescribe a drug and that's all. So there must be brains. They are seriously intended to do clinical studies. As I mentioned, this doesn't need CTIMPs or non-CTIMPs. There could be questionnaire health studies, clinical studies. They can earn money. They can get connected to the world, and also they could be very helpful to the patients. Not only in big metropolitans like Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, but in the small cities and small towns, far landing towns in the countryside, and the poor people can get benefited from this. So the third most important thing is the compliance with ICH GCP. Now, after 50 or so years, we know that still ICH and GCP needs a lots of improvement in their compliance and beneficence of human beings. But still, there is a time learning from others' mistake and improving on ourselves. So the draft can align itself with a modern ICH GCP standards through its just like biostudy rules of 2017. They are more matching with the ethical oversight and informed consent and data integrity. So they can go on and now can take a lead on that, because Pakistan is a country which has a vast landscape of different ethnicities, different languages, different kind of people, different disease, and different difference in every aspect that is mentioned in the well-being of human for a clinical trial. So DRAP can ensure that the clinical studies conducted in Pakistan meet the international quality and safety benchmarks. They can strengthen it. So the matching these will strengthen the Pakistan's credibility in global research and to foster the international collaboration. To further take on lead, DRAP can strengthen its regulatory infrastructure. They can, the DRAP can take on lead not in only in the rural areas, urban areas of Pakistan, but they can extend their monitoring system to rural areas and can promote and can emphasize, as I mentioned, for the young researchers to conduct their studies in these areas. Investing in a training for regulatory staff, in the monitoring staff for ethics committees. They can, so the concept is where I would emphasize on, instead of having one centralized IRB, local IRBs are the best way to strengthen any clinical study, involving the people in IRBs from all aspects of careers. You can involve bankers, you can involve businessmen, you can involve people from masjid, you can involve people and in this, then in parentheses I will say highly qualified, not everyone. You can involve students. So because in most of the countries, and especially countries who follow ICH guidelines, students and minorities are not, they are not allowed to, in every clinical study. So involvement of students will not only teach them how to work on these ethic committees, but rather they will realize and they will learn what an ethical committee do, and what how to sit in a place where highly qualified doctors, bankers, lawyers, and all others are focusing on one point, and that is the safety of a human being. So this will not only change their career goal, but that can influence the whole society at large, in the not only in Pakistan but all over the comstech countries, and then students can come closer to each other in terms of collaborations and working together on all these things. And perhaps we never know, these Gen Z is more advanced and capable than us to generate something new, some brilliant innovative ideas that can be, that can lead this country to lead the whole global community in clinical studies. So it's all about opening the doors for everybody, from every age, every gender, every ethnicity, every language, at local level, so that people understand more about clinical studies. And in the best of best will be done that these the hypothetical things that people have already in countries like Pakistan's rural areas, people have generated, like, clinical studies are just to kill people, or clinical studies are like, they have a satanic, agenda, and all those things can go away, and the transparency can help people to learn more. It's not only about people in the universities, but it's all about the whole community, because a patient who's taking part in a clinical study is not a university grad, for sure, or he or she is not highly educated. In Pakistan, most of the people who will participate, or the target population for clinical studies, are mostly from rural areas, and they might not have higher education. So these ways of involvement of local IRBs and local ethical committees can promote clinical studies in Pakistan. So once again, adopting the digital platform at rural areas will also enhance the engagement of international regulatory concepts and regulatory bodies via the bigger pharma. So number 4 is the approving bodies or approval bodies. As I have already said, that the 2017 law of DRAP is providing a huge resource to clinical researchers, and they can get in there, Pakistan's oversight system to operate through a multi-tiered framework involving the DRAP, NBC, other local and centralized IRBs. So the basic concept that DRAP and NBC should take on is the clinical trials committee's functions as the regulatory body's scientific and technical evaluator. That is the most important point, where they review the study design, safety measures, and compliance with the ICH GCP rules. So before granting the approvals. So together in a combined consortium kind of work, these bodies can integrate the systems, aiming at the safeguarding of ethical standards and well-being of the individuals taking part as subjects in the clinical studies. To align these bodies, Pakistan's regulatory authorities must enhance their capacity. So capacity building is the key at this point of time for Pakistan and all other OIC or comstech countries. So I can give you an example of Malaysia. Malaysia is again a diverse country, just like Pakistan. They have they are trying to meet the ICH standards with their clinical studies, and there is a huge potential. I have conducted reviews of a couple of studies from Malaysia, and my opinion is that Pakistan has mostly the potential for collaboration with countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Iran, and Central Asian countries. So there is a huge potential for these countries to come together and have clinical studies, to have more of the diversity in their clinical data, because most of them are having the similar eating habits, living habits, and the disease paradigm for these countries. So to do that, so the regulatory agencies of these countries can standardize training in ICF GCP guidelines for all member countries, to harmonize their review procedures and digital platforms for protocol submission and tracking under the umbrella of comstech or under DRAP and other regulatory authorities working together. The NBCs, National Bioethics Committees, guidelines, if they align with the global best practices, though they align, but still there is a more kind of space to align with other with COMSTEC countries, and also with the other requirements of the big pharma approvals. So this could be aggregated and monitored to ensure the uniform quality and independence of regulatory authorities. So this will not only strengthen the draft clinical trial process, but with the multidisciplinary expertise, it will and clearer timelines. It will improve the scientific and ethical evaluation process. It will also enhance the coordination among these bodies, once again, to efficient and ethical and credible clinical trial oversight. So key regulatory challenges of Pakistan in particular, and other COMSTEC countries in general. I will just mention a few of them in here. The most important one is the lengthy approval process. I know in draft, where it starts the evaluation process up to the approval process, it's not between 6 and 12, it's less. But so to start with, from the beginning, if we say do not count from 1, rather we count from 0. So the time actually taken from 0 to 1 is longer than other countries like in India or Bangladesh, their neighboring countries. So Pakistan's, the point of time from 0 to 1, it takes longer. Then once the application is at the draft, if we count on all of that total process, so they generally, Pakistan falls in 6 to 12 months, and its neighboring countries, like for most of the Muslim countries and Pakistan, the comparative is either India or Bangladesh. So they are still far ahead of Pakistan. So Pakistan has to work on its approval process to reduce the bureaucratic and other hindrance on draft, to speed up the process. To address these, so that if draft streamlines its approval process by setting clear timelines for kind of study or kind of drug, and then it adopts the most modern digitalized approval processes, not only in the approval processes, but of the most important thing that takes place, the longest time for a regulatory authority to approval process is the to analyzing the data and not going quickly on that with the transparency and deeper understanding of the data, because these big pharmas are like, as we say, devil is in the detail, and they always hide this devil in the detail. So I know it is recognized that regulatory authorities have to take care of all that thing, but still there is a space to optimize and faster optimize the timeline for faster approval processes. So the if the bioethic committees or IRBs have taken care of all those points that were taking, that could raise the red flags in the data, if these were taken care at the beginning step of the approval of the informed consent or the approval of the protocol, then DRAP's work will be diminished a lot. So instead of 6 to 12 months, then DRAP will have to have, will have no reason to, elongate this process if the ethics committee. So the process is, if the ethics committees or the IRBs were at the local level and they were vigilant of protecting the subject's rights, its health, and its beneficent, so then regulatory authorities' workload reduces by folds. So the most important point in here I would emphasize on is the alignment and the commitment between the regulatory process and the ethics committee is more important to take care of this approval process. So as we said, one of the delaying tactics is the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is not only is the key part of every authority, every government, every approval process of laws and regulations, and as we are talking about clinical studies. So the bureaucracy is not that people who are sitting in the ethics committee or people who are sitting in the approval process. So in here, bureaucracy is the part of that DRAP function that has like small nitty-gritty things to do with forms, with regulations, and with the provisions of the the sources to clinical researchers, and then not guiding them clearly to the right path that has less hindrances, and the researchers could reach the first benchmark of from 0 to 1. So that when I say bureaucracy, my main goal is that this 0 to 1 point, reaching that point, if this is not delayed, then regulatory authorities have at least to say for the approval processes. So the not only the review process, but is the submission process. So countries like Pakistan and people in bureaucrats in DRAP, if they facilitate the application submission process easier, clearer, and helpful. Sometimes the forms and the submission channels are so much complicated. It's not only in DRAP, but it's other countries too. That the submitter, they have to have attorney to do that. So if this process is facilitated for a common researcher, him or herself, this will and not only enhance the approval process, but it will it will motivate the clinical researchers to do these things by themselves and to help the to train others in their people working under them. And then this will not only provide the transparency, because easier the laws are, transparent these are. So the goal is the rules and regulations should be simplified in a way that once the clinical researcher starts filling in the forms and the data things before reaching to collect the data on patient and then submit it for approval process. This will enhance the efficacy of DRAP in particular we are focusing on, and for other regulatory authorities in comstech countries. So and then the second part is not only the basic information, but the most complicated thing comes in the amendments, in the deviations, in the monitoring findings. If the DRAP adopts all the rules and regulations with the transparency to help the researchers and monitors, not DRAP's monitors, but the monitors of these clinical studies who are internally working for the clinical researchers. So the coherent collaboration between the internal monitors and the monitors at large for the draft ethics committees and all approval processes. If there is from the day one of the clinical study conduct, a collaboration and a transparent communication. So that will enhance it will speed up the time period for faster approvals, and also it will reduce the burden on draft people to take care of individualized studies, rather than assigning parts of the studies to different people to analyze and put their comments and review in the review process, and then elongating the process of the approval. This will give them a pathway that everybody is already, as soon as the study gets approved and is being conducted, the data is coming up and being analyzed with the process, and it will also help DRAP to give their feedback during the deviations. So deviations are mostly the points, especially the informed consent deviations, deviations done by the participant subjects themselves. So to improve these issues, DRAP can streamline, again, digitalize its application management system to allow the real-time tracking of standardized documents, and it will faster the processing of submission and amendments, clear guidelines on checklists. So checklists are the most important thing in modern days clinical studies. Monitors, conductors of the study, reviewers, if they have the same checklist, all have the same checklist. One is doing, other one is reviewing, the final is approving. So then it goes check, check, check. This goes faster and faster. So establishing the review teams. So this is one more area of improvement, where you can have the particular people trained, highly trained in their areas, and then they are conducting those clinical studies, and then they are taking care of those studies approval process and review process. So the most important thing in any society, any authority, any department, any academic area is the financial barriers. So financial barriers can be of all kinds. Financial barrier, like here in US, So the FDA's financial barriers, the most of that burden is taken care by big pharmas. So when they take care of your financial barrier, then they have a huge say in their approval process. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, DRAP is quite lucky in these terms that they do not wholesale, based on the finances provided by the pharma companies to review their studies and then do not and to have at least say in the approval processes. So the advantage that DRAP has is that it is governed by the government of Pakistan, and with the independence, transparent independence, this can turn into a role model for other countries in comstech, and who knows, for advanced countries to take care of their approval processes and to have the least influence of big pharma during the approval processes. Uh, when I say approval processes, is the not reviewing the whole information, but the information that only the pharma provides to you. So this is a big dilemma in in advanced countries to having all the resources and everything. Still they do not have a big say to big pharmas in providing all that data, whatever is required for the review. So they provide pick and cherry. So cherry picking data is always a hurdle in the not only in the approval processes, but in phase 4, when you are conducting the later studies, how the side effects and everything has gone through. So DRAP can take care of this by having less cost for regulatory compliance, not having heavy burden on sponsors, often limiting the diversity of the studies that has been conducted. And the delays are not only on the regulatory path, but delays are sometimes because of the companies or researchers due to the financial barriers. So if there is a huge potential for Pakistan, countries like Pakistan, to build an environment where researchers are provided with a funding and the financial resources from the sponsors, in a way that regulatory authorities are already in line with the whole process of finances and everything. So this will, again, it's not on a transparency on the regulatory end, but it's a transparency on the sponsor and the researchers' ends. And then compounding these all issues that we have discussed, the inadequate enforcement of patient protection. So again, patients' safety and trust is based on the IRBs. And one more time, I will emphasize the local IRBs led by highly qualified and diverse population can enhance and strengthen the clinical studies, and also can help in ways to address these financial obstacles. There are lots and lots of philanthropists in Pakistan, and then once countries like Pakistan can have philanthropists involved in clinical studies and being the sponsor for researchers who do not have funds from other sources, this can put a new paradigm of clinical studies. So last is the ethical barriers. As we mentioned in the beginning slides, so every country has its own ethics. ICH has put forward ethics based on human level. So not all countries agree with the ICH standards for clinical studies, especially in countries where less educated and negative minded people take lead on transforming human brain. So there is a huge area of work that DRAP can take lead on by involving the local IRBs led by highly educated and well-informed personnels. Um, as I earlier mentioned, students, attorneys, bankers, people who know the finance and the role of finance in, improvement of human studies and the progress of the societies. Um, Not only things that are just, rituals and those things. So sometimes when in countries like Pakistan, when people who are only following the rituals take lead on guidelines. So the problem is, turns into, the what do you call hypotheses and hypothetical negative mindedness, and then it influences the whole process of, approval and monitoring. So if the DRAP takes care of these dangerous areas to address and to to make people informed of all these ethics being conducted for clinical studies in a way that students learn in the school and colleges or universities. More the uh, higher education personnels are aware of these ethics that are aligning with the global ethics. More is to resolve these barriers in all ComStech countries. So this approach not only would decentralize the ethic review process, but it will reduce the overburden on centralized committees and increasing the accessibility of sponsors across the countries. Strengthening the oversight and standardization process across all IRBs, local IRBs being governed by the centralized IRBs and regulatory authorities. This will make a transparent and step-by-step approval process ease for the regulatory agencies. So the diversification of on these bases will not only lower the cost, but it will accelerate the approval process. So though I have been mentioning recommendations that I feel as a regulatory personnel for DRAP and other regulatory authorities of the ComStech countries to be taken care of to align with the international and global clinical arena. But still, these five are most important ideas that I think the ComStech countries can take lead on. The goal of my presentation is not that DRAP and other regulatory authorities in ComStech countries doesn't have these, but they can lead on, because this is now not the time to follow ICH and advanced countries, but this is now the time, because we have all resources. AI and modernized technologies are now for everybody, for everyone in the rural Sindh and Balochistan or Kashmir or anywhere in the Middle East countries, but it is open to anybody and everybody and people are now, putting their efforts in harmonization of ICH through their regional frameworks, so that the clinical studies that are being conducted globally can come to their countries, and they can have their own part, not only by participating in the global clinical studies, but by harmonizing their own local sponsored studies um, with the international and global regulatory approval processes. There are many Pakistanis and other comstech country sponsors who live in US, Canada, and Europe, and then they are having their own clinical sites in countries like Pakistan. So this is now a new paradigm for all of us sitting in modern world, or Asia or Europe. Now this is the whole modern world. This generation is no more divided into first world and third world. There is no first world and third world now. It's all one world. And to be the part of this one world, we have to not only follow, but we have to improve based on our regional frameworks and our diversity and our ideas and our knowledge. We have to have the capacity now to participate and to contribute towards global regulations to be not only good for them and us, but for all, to enhance the efficacy and the credibility of clinical research oversight. So these are the 5 points: streamlining the processes, capacity building, clearer rules, fast track pathways, not only for phase 1 to 3 trials, but also for the pharmacovigilance. This is the area that I intentionally did not touch today, because pharmacovigilance is now a whole different paradigm in clinical studies. Clinical studies for companies who are billionaires. Pharmacovigilance is now being brutally manipulated. So countries like Pakistan and other comstech countries, they can challenge these things by taking part in the clinical studies at their regional level through their local IRBs, governed by regulatory agencies like DRAP, having a clearer, communications. The clearer the communication at regional level is, emphasized output you have at the global frame of reference. So this is how we can improve on. So by saying all of that and mentioning all these references, I want to say that Pakistan has a strong potential to become the leader in clinical research because its pharmaceutical sector is growing. It has a large treatment naive population. So my emphasis is treatment naive population. So there is a huge gap that DRAP can fill in by involving academia and by involving small business sponsors in clinical studies, by appreciating the medical doctors at rural area to conduct the clinical studies. As I said, not if they don't have a medical intervention, they can have just questionnaires, epidemiological studies. This will not only enhance. So just let me give you, I'm just driving a little out of this presentation's context, but I have a friend from Bangladesh. His father was the vice chancellor of the Dhaka University before partition of Pakistan and Bangladesh, when Bangladesh was East Pakistan. So he was conducting his PhD at Tufts Tufts University, where my wife also conducted her PhD. And his study was focused on vitamin A deficiency. And when he conducted this study and went back to Dhaka, he conducted that study for whole of the Pakistan, East and West. And he found out that the people in the East Pakistan are more vitamin A deficient. So the outcome was that he conducted a epidemiological study. He was not an epidemiologist, but he conducted an epidemiological study. And they found out, how much, every Bangladeshi, by then Bangladesh came into being, needs a vitamin A in his diet or her diet on daily basis. And now, this was when we were discussing and studying that article back in 2015. By 2015, no Bangladeshi individual is vitamin A deficient. They have enough vitamin A in their diet. While Pakistan, the West Pakistan of that time and Pakistan now, there are many, many people who are vitamin A deficient. So the clinical researchers who are sitting in rural areas, feeling themselves like helpless and just earning, holding the wrist, telling them prescribing the drug, and then just getting, they can get involved in these studies. They can do, epidemiology studies, and they can do all other kind of questionnaire studies to help DRAP to find out which areas they need to focus on, because DRAP is not only an approval authority. DRAP is also focusing on what kind of clinical studies Pakistan should take lead in. So these clinical researchers sitting in rural areas of Pakistan, they can be helpful to regulatory authorities, and this can generate a new business of billions of dollars that will benefit the people of Pakistan. The sponsor will come from everywhere in the world. People are the businessman doesn't care about which country or wherever the money is coming from. In this way, there is a flow of economy. And then countries like Pakistan, they need this. They need their leadership footsteps now in the global arena. So with these changes, Pakistan can improve on efficiency. They can attract global research investment and elevate its role in biomedical research. So at the end, I would highly appreciate and acknowledge my mentor, my first love, Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, for introducing me to comstech and giving me an opportunity to present at comstech platform, share my thoughts and learn from everyone in the audience now. And also, I'm so much grateful to Hasib Saab. He has been wonderful. He has been really patient. He has been really cooperative in managing all that and advising me how to, what I have to present, what is required for this, forum, and the to present how much time. Once again, I'm so grateful to Obed Bhai and Dr. Beg for kind introduction. And I will end my presentation and open it for questions with a saying that only I know. I used to work with my late Professor Vikaruddin Ahmed on carbon 13 NMR for natural products. I was his assistant on writing that book. And once I went to ask him some, childish question, and he said, boy, knowing where to find the answer is the best knowledge. And I still believe whenever, even now in 15 years in my career, It is true. Knowing where to find the answer is the best knowledge. Thank you so very much, all of you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the brilliant lecture and for sparing the time. I think we'll open the floor for a few questions now. To all the participants that want to ask a question, you can copy paste it in the chat box and we can have a look at that as well. I think we have one question here in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. It's by Ms. Bushra Zareen. Should I go through the question for you, sir?
Sure, please.
This is quite a long question. So, given the complex regulatory landscape in Pakistan, what specific regulatory frameworks or mechanisms can DRAP implement to streamline clinical trial approval processes that stimulate, facilitate local pharmaceutical innovation and encourage foreign investment while ensuring
Very,
adherence to
sure.
international standards?
Very, very good question. And my whole, focus of my presentation was on this question. As I mentioned, there are three major steps. Involvement of academic research, involve students in IRBs, established local IRBs. One central IRB will have a burden of work. Local IRBs will ease the workload for DRAP. And involvement of students will not only educate them, but they are the source to educate the community, educate the society at large. As I mentioned, in countries like Pakistan, it is very, very unfortunate that people who teach ethics have no ethics. I'm so sorry to saying this, but this is the true for countries like Pakistan. So they consider ethics just by narrating with the tongue. No, ethics are well-being of others, not yourself. Well-beings of others, not restricting others, not hindering others. So the concept of local IRBs is based on that, and involvement of academics and students is to raise the manpower. You have the more technically excellent, technically sound manpower, you have the ingredient now. So DRAP has lots and lots of resources, and their approval processes are like, we are always, saying this country doesn't have this country doesn't have, no, this country has everything. Comstech countries have everything. The only thing that we do not have is the cohesive youth who is well informed of regulations, well informed of conducting the studies, well informed of participating to how to generate money. We are I hear many Pakistani friends, they write me or students, they are doing Amazon things and everything. There is a huge potential in clinical studies. Get yourself skilled in there, and then you have a lot. And the second part of your question, how to ease on the regulatory approval process. So once the things are streamlined, local IRBs are connected to the central IRB. So this is one end where the load work will be reduced. Then less bureaucracy involved in all these submission and approval processes. The highly skilled technical people. This will be a second step towards that. And then finally, at the once we have the data, so the people who really understand that particular study, that disease being considered for approval processes. So let's say an example of weight loss medicine being approved at every regulatory agency. So this is killing. This is not going to harmonize the global community. There must be a regulatory authority who should check all the data, because these big pharmas provide only pick and cherry data. So cherry pick data is not helpful. So regulatory agencies should ask for all the data with the negative info, or all the side effects things and everything, so that they can inform their people. Like, if, for example, let's say diabetes is differently prevailing in different communities. So a regulatory authority should be very, very vigilant to see that.
I don't think there are any more questions here, but even if there are, I'll just take them over email and then compile them and send them to you. If
Thank you
get
so very much, Hasib Saab. I'm so sorry I have taken
no,
way
not
longer than the required time.
absolutely no issues there. Thank you for sparing the time, and I think yeah, it's the same. So
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot again. And please convey my salams to Professor Iqbal Chaudhary, Ubaid Bhai, and Dr. Beg.
of course, of course.
Thank you
So thank you
so
for
much.
joining
Thanks
us
a lot.
again. And thank you to the participants for participating in this webinar. And we'll also upload this recording on our YouTube channel, so it's there for anyone that could not join and wants to, assess the lecture later on as well.
Thank you so much, Avagi.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.